Well, I remember being on the in the gondola with Thelonious Bernard, the wonderful young man who...
For decades, Diane Lane's name was whispered through the corridors of Hollywood, a symbol of beauty, mystery, and scandal. She was the actress who could light up the screen with a single look. Yet behind that perfect smile lay a lifetime of rumors that refused to fade. From secret romances with her co-stars to alleged affairs with directors and producers. Diane's love life became a story the tabloids couldn't stop writing, and she never once defended herself. Until now? At 60, the woman once called the Grace Kelly of her generation has decided to break her silence. What she revealed wasn't a confession of guilt, but a story of survival, heartbreak, and self-discovery. Because behind every rumor lies a truth. And Diane Lane is finally ready to tell hers, before the fame, before the scandals. Diane Lane was just a little girl caught between two worlds. Born in New York City in 1965, she was the child of chaos. Her mother, a nightclub singer and former Playboy model. Her father, an acting coach with a fiery temper. When Diane was barely out of diapers, her parents split, and her mother kidnapped her, whisking her across the country. By 6, she was performing on stage. By 13, she was acting alongside Laurence Olivier, who called her the next Grace Kelly. The world saw a prodigy, but inside, Diane was growing up too fast. Fame came early, but guidance never did. She learned to smile when she wanted to scream, to be graceful when she felt lost. By 15, she had already run away from home, chasing a dream she didn't yet understand. Hollywood didn't see a child, it saw a star, and stars don't get to make mistakes. It was this lonely, fragile girl who would soon step into the glare of a world that devoured innocence for breakfast. And the first lesson Hollywood taught her came wrapped in love, temptation, and heartbreak. Love came early for Diane Lane, and it came like fire. At 17, she fell for her co-star Christopher Atkins, the blue-eyed heartthrob from the Blue Lagoon. It was young, wild, and doomed from the start. Fame was their playground, but the world around them was far from innocent. Soon after, Diane found herself drawn to Matt Dillon, her brooding co-star from The Outsiders. Their chemistry was real, reckless, electric, the kind of love that only burns once. They were Hollywood's new it couple. But behind the scenes, Diane was already learning that love in Hollywood was never just about love. Every photograph, every whisper, every headline came with a price. When it ended, she was left with her first heartbreak and a lesson carved deep into her, that in this town, affection was currency and trust was rare. But Hollywood wasn't done with her yet, because the next man she met would blur the line between career and chaos and push her name into the headlines for all the wrong reasons. That man was Nicolas Cage, young, intense, unpredictable, and already chasing the kind of fame that burned everyone in its path. Diane Lane met him in the late 80s, during the wild, neon-tinted years, when Hollywood felt like a fever dream. Cage was magnetic, part poet, part storm, and Diane, drawn to chaos as much as she was to passion, couldn't resist. Their connection was fiery but fleeting, a collision more than a romance. They fought as much as they loved, both too ambitious, too untamed, too young to understand that not every spark is meant to last. When it ended, the tabloids had a field day, calling her Hollywood's heartbreaker. But the truth was simpler. Diane wasn't breaking hearts. She was trying to find her own. Yet, just as the flames of that affair faded, a new chapter began, one that would take her from scandal to stardom, from gossip columns to Oscar stages, and it all started with a single, dangerous film, Unfaithful. When Unfaithful hit theaters in 2002, Diane Lane wasn't just acting. She was living. The story of a wife torn between love and temptation felt eerily close to her own life. Her performance was raw, vulnerable, and dangerously real, earning her an Academy Award nomination and reigniting her career. But with the praise came the whispers. The chemistry between Diane and her co-star Olivier Martinez was too intense, too convincing. Rumors of an off-screen affair with both Martinez and Richard Gere spread like wildfire. And once again, her private life became public property. Yet Diane didn't deny or explain. She simply smiled and let the world wonder. For her, Unfaithful wasn't a confession. It was a release. It was every suppressed emotion she'd carried for years, finally allowed to breathe. But just as Hollywood fell in love with her again, Diane's real life took another turn, one that would test her heart far more than any movie ever could. Because this time, the story wasn't scripted, and it began with a man named Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin entered Diane Lane's life like a calm after the storm. Or at least that's how it seemed. He was rugged, grounded, and carried the kind of darkness that felt familiar to her. They married in 2004, and for a brief moment, Diane appeared to have finally found peace. But Hollywood fairy tales rarely last. Within months, police were called to their home after a heated argument turned physical. Both downplayed the incident, calling it a misunderstanding. But the cracks were clear. Diane had spent her youth running from chaos, only to find it again in the man she thought would save her. Still, she stayed, out of love. Or maybe hope that this time, love could fix what life had broken. For nearly a decade, she balanced public smiles with private pain. Until in 2013, she finally walked away for good. And when she did, it wasn't scandal that followed her. It was silence. Because what came next wasn't about survival anymore. It was about rebirth after the divorce. Diane Lane disappeared from Hollywood's chaos, not out of defeat, but out of choice. She retreated to her California home, surrounded by quiet and sunlight, trading red carpets for morning walks and late-night writing. For the first time in her life, she wasn't someone's daughter, lover, or muse. She was just Diane. The tabloids called it a fall from grace, but she knew better. It was liberation. She began choosing roles not for fame but for meaning, appearing in small indie films, mentoring young actresses, and speaking openly about women's independence in Hollywood. When asked if she missed love, she smiled and said, "Love never leaves you. It just changes shape." What the world saw as a retreat was actually a rebirth, the quiet reclaiming of a life that had always belonged to her. But even as she embraced solitude, the ghosts of her past, the rumors, the headlines, the whispers, were never far behind. And soon, she would confront them all. One last time. When Diane Lane finally decided to speak, the world listened. Sitting across from a journalist in a quiet Los Angeles studio. She wasn't the glamorous movie star the public remembered. She was calm, unguarded, and utterly human. For the first time, she addressed the scandals that had followed her for decades. "Yes, I've made mistakes," she said. "But I've also learned that the truth isn't what people write about you. It's what you can live with." Her honesty disarmed even the harshest critics. She spoke of love without regret, of heartbreak without bitterness. Every rumor, every headline, every whispered story had shaped her, but none of them defined her. "You don't survive Hollywood by being perfect," she added softly. "You survive by being real." And as the interview ended, Diane smiled, the kind of smile that belongs to someone who's finally made peace with her past. But what she didn't expect was how that truth would inspire an entirely new generation of women to find their voices too. In the years that followed, Diane Lane became something unexpected, a quiet icon, not for her beauty, nor her fame, but for her resilience. Younger actresses began citing her not as a star, but as a survivor, a woman who had seen Hollywood's sharpest edges and refused to let them cut her spirit. She appeared less on screen, but when she did, every role felt lived in, honest, and deeply human. Fans said she no longer acted, she revealed. Diane also turned her attention to causes that mattered, mentoring women in film, advocating for mental health, and teaching others how to rebuild after public scrutiny. The tabloids no longer chased her because she had taken away their power by owning her story. And somewhere between grace and grit, Diane Lane finally became what Hollywood could never make her: free. But as one chapter closed, another quietly began, a return to the screen, and perhaps to love.